This is the lecture recording for Chapter 1 slides on the human organism. So this Chapter 1 is an introduction, and make sure that you know the definition of anatomy. And physiology is not on here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so make sure you know the definition of anatomy and physiology, since that is the name of the course that you're taking. Anatomy and physiology is the study, typically in college, we study the human anatomy and physiology. So the anatomy part is the part that is concerned with the structure of the body. It actually means to dissect, but anatomy means structure. But you can't really study anatomy, not really learn about it without studying physiology along with it. So the physiology part is the processes and the functions of the body structures. And there are different areas of anatomy and physiology, but just make sure you understand that the relationship between anatomy and physiology is that the structure determines the function. The function of a particular body part is dependent on its structure. And so we're going to review just a little bit of information from general biology, and that is the levels of organization in the human body. The simplest and smallest level is the chemical level. So with the chemical level, we have atoms. Atoms are the simplest chemicals and smallest chemicals. Atoms are the smallest particles of elements, and the elements are the pure substances that we find on the periodic table of elements. So atoms are our pure substances, but when you combine two or more atoms, you get a molecule. When you combine them through a chemical bond, you get a molecule. So what I'm highlighting are the levels of organization, beginning with the simplest, and then we're going to go to the most complex. So then we take molecules, and molecules are combined to form little structures, little parts inside of each cell called organelles. So organelles are like, for example, the nucleus or the mitochondria. They're listed down here. Examples of organelles: the mitochondria, the nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, ribosomes. So the organelles are the cell parts, and then when you put a plasma membrane around all of the organelles, that's when you have a cell. So the levels of organization go from atoms to molecules to organelles to cells, and then groups of cells form tissues. Groups of similar cells form tissues. We have 4 different tissue types in the human body. They are, and we have a whole chapter on this, but just so that you have heard the terms, epithelial tissues form linings and coverings. Connective tissues would be like, bone is a connective tissue, blood is a connective tissue, fat is a connective tissue. Then there's the packing material of the body, that's connective tissue. There's muscular tissue and there's nervous tissue. So these are the 4 tissue types: epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. But going back to our levels of organization, it's going to start with atoms, then molecules, then organelles, then cells, then tissues. And then 2 or more tissue types that form a structure that does some sort of function in the body. That's an organ. So groups of tissues form organs, groups of organs form organ systems, and the human body has 11 organ systems. Let's see if it's 11 listed here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't know why. Oh, because they put lymphatic and immune as two separate systems. Typically, the immune system is listed along with, or it's included in the lymphatic system. But anyway, this is a good list of the organ systems in the human body, and they are the integumentary, which includes the skin, hair, nails, and some of the glands that are in the skin, like the sweat glands and the oil glands. Then we have the skeletal system, which is the bones and the joints, the muscular system, which is your skeletal muscles that are attached to your bones and function in helping your body move. The nervous system, which is the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. Endocrine, which are the glands that produce hormones, like your pancreas. Cardiovascular is the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. And lymphatic and immune typically go together. The lymphatic system is also a system of vessels and also organs like lymph nodes. Then we have the respiratory, which is the lungs, the digestive, which is the stomach and the intestines, the urinary, which is the kidneys and the bladder, and then the reproductive, the male and the female reproductive systems. So all the organ systems together make up the entire organism, which would be the human being. So this is a list of all of those, not all of them, there's a few that are missing. So we have atoms combine to form molecules. What we don't have on this list is the word organelle. So make sure you know that it goes atoms, molecules, organelles, then cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and organism. So just make sure you know where organelle comes. I'll see if I can write it, but usually I don't do very well with that. Just make sure that you know organelle goes here. Let's see, I'm never going to be able to do this. So just make sure that you know organelle goes here. Between molecules and cells. Okay, and then we have the human body and some of the major organs. It shows you that the heart is between the two lungs, and you've got your liver is directly underneath the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm, which is the muscle that separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity. So the diaphragm here, and then under the diaphragm is the liver and the stomach, the spleen, the small intestines are here, and then the large intestine starts at this point over here on the right side and goes up, across, and down. And then that forms into the rectum and the anus. And then you can also see in front of all of that is the urinary bladder. The gallbladder is attached actually to the liver. And then the kidneys are behind everything. So the kidneys are actually close to your back. And you can see the outline of one here. Okay, so these are just some of the major organs. Here's your organ systems. And for right now, you just need to be familiar with the major structures, the main structures of each organ system. So integumentary system is the skin primarily. It also includes hair, nails, and some of your glands, like your sweat glands and your oil glands. But the skeletal system is your bones and your joints. Muscular system is talking about your skeletal muscles, the ones that are attached to your bones, because there are two other types of muscle. There's cardiac muscle and there's smooth muscle. But the muscular system is referring primarily to the skeletal muscle. And the nervous system is the brain, spinal cord, and the nerves that are attached. The endocrine system includes the some endocrine structures are in the brain. The pineal gland produces melatonin. the hormone melatonin to help you sleep. The hypothalamus is in the brain. The pituitary gland is in the brain. Then in your throat area, you have the thyroid gland and the parathyroid glands. The thyroid gland produces hormones, thyroid hormones, which regulate your metabolism. And your parathyroid glands and thyroid gland produce hormones that regulate calcium levels. The thymus gland does produce hormones. It also is where the T cells, the certain lymphocytes called T cells, mature in the thymus gland. They're produced in the bone marrow, but then they are transported to the thymus and they mature here. So in other words, the thymus gland is part of the endocrine system, and also it's part of the immune system. You have the kidneys, and on top of the kidneys, the adrenal glands. And those adrenal glands produce stress hormones like cortisol and epinephrine or adrenaline. The pancreas, of course, produces insulin, helps regulate blood glucose levels. Then you have the ovaries in the female and the testes in the male, which are part of the endocrine system because they produce hormones, and they're part of the reproductive system as well. Cardiovascular system is your heart and your blood vessels. The lymphatic system is going to include your lymph nodes and your lymphatic vessels and ducts. And it's going to include the spleen and the tonsils. And then the respiratory system will be the trachea or the windpipe and your airways and your lungs. Your digestive system actually starts with the mouth, and then the entire GI tract, gastrointestinal tract, goes from the mouth to the anus. The esophagus takes food to your stomach, and then food is digested in the stomach and the small intestines and the large intestines. And well, the main function of the large intestines is to basically absorb water, and I guess move the feces along, until the waste is removed from your body. But the digestive tract is from mouth to anus, and then you have these accessory glands that help with digestion: liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. And then we have the urinary system, which begins with the kidneys, and then you have the tubes that connect the kidneys to the bladder. They're called ureters. And then the urethra is where the urine leaves the body. You have the female reproductive system, the male reproductive system. And so just make sure you know the names of the reproductive systems and their main components. We have a little bit of information now on the characteristics that all living things share, including humans, plants, fungi, bacteria. All living things have organization. They're organized in a certain way. We're learning organization starting with simplest, moving to the most complex. So when we talk about organization of the human body, we start with atoms, and then we move all the way to the organism, which is us, which is a person. And then metabolism. All living things have a metabolism, which is all the chemical reactions that occur in the cells of that organism. So it's the chemical reactions that break down large chemicals into smaller ones, and the chemical reactions that build larger molecules. So the synthesis reactions and the breakdown reactions, all of them are part of our metabolism. So metabolism is referring to chemical reactions inside of our cells, primarily inside of our bodies. And then responsiveness, the ability to sense some type of stimulus from the environment and respond to it. Growth, development, reproduction, Homeostasis is one that we talk about in every single chapter. So homeostasis is the maintaining a relatively constant internal environment. Relatively constant meaning certain levels need to be within a healthy range. For example, let's see, blood sugar. We want our blood glucose levels to be between 80 and 120 typically. Fasting, if you know anything about diabetes, fasting blood glucose needs to be below 100. But anyway, it's a healthy range, and once the blood glucose levels go higher than that range or lower than that range, then the body has to act in a way to get the glucose levels back in the range that they're supposed to be in. So homeostasis includes any situation or any condition in the body that has to be kept fairly constant. Breathing rate, blood pressure, blood glucose levels, blood calcium levels, blood potassium levels, just different things like that. Body temperature is a good example. So homeostasis is maintaining healthy levels of lots of different conditions inside the body. Variables are just like what I just listed. They're just different measurements of different conditions like temperature, blood pressure, glucose levels, and it lists some of them here: body temperature, fluid volume, chemical contents like blood glucose and blood calcium, and pH levels. When with homeostasis, a lot of times we think about or we look at a normal range. So normal increases or decreases around a set point, versus when it's abnormal, and that's when your body needs to work to get those conditions back into that normal range. So here you can see, for example, your body temperature fluctuating around let's say the set point is 98.6. Although everyone's set point is not 98.6, but that is the average. Most people it is. So some people's set point is a little lower and some is a little higher. But 98.6 degrees is the set point. So your temperature can fluctuate around that as long as it doesn't go too far or go out of the normal range. And the range would be between 98.4 and 98.8. Outside of that, if it goes up to 98.9, then your body temperature is too high. And if it goes below that 98.4, then it's too low. So there's a normal range and there's a set point, and typically what happens is you have fluctuations around the set point, but that condition stays very, very near the set point. And when it doesn't, your body will act to get that particular condition back close to the set point. And what we're going to do is stop here, and I'll start the next recording at slide 17, and we'll talk about the feedback loop. In other words, the way that our body maintains homeostasis is through either a negative feedback loop or positive feedback loop, and we'll talk about how that works.